What's going on, y'all? Hope everybody's doing great today or tonight, whatever time it is for wherever you're watching. And if you're not doing good, maybe you should go jog or lift some weights or find something to do with yourself. But if you are doing good, keep on keeping on. But today, I just wanted to talk about something that I passed by on YouTube that really speaks a lot to Hollywood and how they treat things and how they hate when people have passion about a project and they only want to hire people that represent a certain look or a certain creed, certain beliefs. They don't want to pick people because of talent. They only want to pick people because because of ideology. Okay, and you can tell that. That's no hard thing to realize when you go look at some of these people's standards for hiring and things like that. And it's not even only Hollywood. It's also major corporations and stuff like Aldi's. You want to read something funny, go type in Aldi's inclusivity hiring. Go check that out. Anyway, scrolling through YouTube, and I found a video titled D&D Cancels Live Action Dragonlance, Joe Manganiello exclusive interview. Or exclusive reveal, rather. Posted on the character sheet on comicbooks.com. If you haven't seen that YouTube channel, you should go check it out. They cover all things D&D news related. But I just wanted to walk through this interview a little bit and kind of study the body language of this guy. Kind of look at how he's maybe kind of gauging himself, a little bit, how he's holding back a little bit. Let's just go ahead and get right into it.
When I presented the pilot to Margaret and Tracy, Tracy really, kind of took a step back and said, Tracy and Margaret were all about it and completely behind it and completely approved. But it really was me getting in there and really fleshing out the world that they built and a world that they hinted at in some places, but didn't really, they didn't shine the magnifying glass on it.
You could see how much leeway this guy has in this sphere of things. He presented it to Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss, the original creators of Dragonlance and the books, and everything that is Dragonlance. You can thank those two for it. So he's deeply connected with them, and he so much so that he was able to present this pilot for a show that he wrote directly to them. But it doesn't matter what they like. When at the end of the day, there's a studio to answer to, and that there are players behind the veil that are going to make sure that stuff like this doesn't see the light of day. Let's see what he says. He's read the books. He's a huge fan of the books. That they kind of gave him a layout of what to work with, and he delved deep into parts where the books didn't delve that deep into, but they gave him enough wiggle room to work with and kind of make his own assumptions about certain things. And as he says, mine the gold that was there to be mined. Now, somebody like this who is obviously incredibly passionate about a project, why would they not let him lead the project? We'll see what his answer is.
But what came out of it was a really fresh take on those novels that was absolutely 100% supported by all of the books. But like I said, I'm taking it a step further. And of course, I'm writing for my old boss at HBO, Michael Lombardo, and the team at E1. And then E1, they got sold off. So
he's saying that pretty much the team at E1 is no longer there because E1 was sold off. Now let's go look at who E1 was sold to. Lionsgate. Okay? So I believe E1 was an entertainment platform owned by Hasbro. Okay, so they sold it to Lionsgate for $375 million. In cash, it says, subject to certain purchases, price adjustments, Yada yada yada, plus the assumption of production financing loans, blah 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 blah. Now, it's either here or there. You know, you can make whatever assumptions you want about why they decided to sell their movie production company.
Your bones are scraped clean by the desolate wind. Your vault will now surely die, as you have.
But what makes me curious, about the Dungeons and Dragons movie that recently came out. When it came out, was E1 working on it under Lionsgate? Or was it Hasbro E1 and then they released it under that? Let's give that a Google. If you give it a Google, it'll tell you that Hasbro owned E1 and they made the D&D movie with that studio because they owned it, okay? So if you look up how much that movie cost and then you go look up how much it made, it's just kind of confusing to me that they would sell the studio because it doesn't seem like that big of a loss. You know, it's just kind of confusing. Yeah, I mean, $150 million budget. Yeah, $208 million worldwide. While falling short of its break-even point. So I guess it fell short. This is the numbers they report don't make much sense because it's saying it fell short. Well, it's saying it gained $208 million worldwide. So you put $150 million into it, you made $58 million. So is making $58 million not enough to keep a company? I don't know, kind of confusing. So they sold it to Lionsgate after they made $58 million off of it. But see, I have a sneaking little suspicion that either the revenue is lying or the budget is lying, because a lot of times there will be reshoots in a lot of these movies where they don't count the cost of reshoots into the budget. So who knows? Let's see what he continues to say here.
So
let's see what
Michael Lombardo was no longer there as I was finishing my pilot. And the people who were real champions of my pilot were no longer there. And so the current regime at Wizards.
Okay, right. This is probably my favorite part of the interview. He called it a fucking regime. He said because of the current regime at Wizards. Is regime ever held in a good light? Do people talk about regimes like they're good? Does that ever happen? You know, no. And you can tell as he continues to go on about it. You know, he's doing a lot of this. You know, a lot of face rubbing, a lot of. You know, I feel like he wants to go off on them because he's trying to suss out a reason in his mind why they would not want to continue, like why Wizards would not want to continue on with Dragonlance. And why would that be? Why would they not want to do that? Because they failed Dragonlance in December. Their release of Dragonlance was a complete failure. I mean, it's like a small little adventure in a giant, massive world, thick with lore, rich with, you know, characters that could have been brought in from the books. There's so much that you could have done with it. You know, they could have been way more specific about the time period you're in. I'm not saying they don't talk about the time period you're in. You know, it's 300 years after the cataclysm and all that. But other than that, there's not much information in the book about the lore of the world. It's a pretty shallow fucking read. You know, I've been going through it. I'm running it right now. And it's not that great. I'm going to be actually working in some old Dragonlance stuff into this new shit to make it better, because that's what it needs. Truly, that's what it needs to make it feel good, you know. And it's up to a good dungeon master to go in and find those, as he was kind of saying about the show, find those little nuggets to dig it out. You know, it's a dungeon master's job to make the game more in depth than what the module gives you, to make it more in depth than just simply this baseline of bullshit that they give you to work with. And it is complete bullshit. You know, I've ranted about it already in another video about how the art and the people in the world don't line up to the lore that's set in place, and they don't care about that. You know, the creators of this shit, or I should say the fucking ruiners of this shit. That's what they truly are. They're fucking demons. They don't care about the original lore. They would probably prefer you, when you come into Wizards, when you're working at these places, they'd probably prefer you to not know about the lore. And it kind of shows that and you can kind of see that in a lot of companies. You can see that in Marvel. You can see that in Disney, just as a whole. You know, they don't care about the original lore. They fucking hate the original lore. And the reason I suspect they hate it is because it's all written by white guys. Now that could be me overthinking it. That could be, you know, just a step too far, you know, a bridge too far is what that could be. But if you go look at the hiring standards of a lot of these places, it would seem they hate white guys. It would seem. I'll put up a funny little clip here. We could watch it together of this. It's going around now. It's a viral clip of all these people working at Marvel that were told to not read the comics, or it was better that they didn't read the comics. You know, let's just pull that up real quick, because that's a real fun one. Oh God, man. Oh God, this is complete. I hate recently. You know, I guess my shit. I don't know. What do you guys get? Hero Wars ads? Do any of y'all get Heroes? Oh man. I'm gonna go through this fucking stupid shit. I can't stand when I get an ad for Hero Wars and it's like a giantess slut sucking people into the midsection of her tits where there's like this giant vacuum or something. That is how degenerate are we fucking becoming? And this is another example of how these writers of these things, I feel they want you to all be porn addicted freaks. They really would love that, and there's no good lore and no good context to many of these things, because where there was lore and there was good storytelling, they replace with smut and, you know, strong girl boss bitchy type characters that no one can relate with unless you're a fucking CEO of some Fortune 500 company. You know, if you're a girl CEO of, you know, let's say in the future, girl CEO of Hasbro, you know, that's like, what are they trying to do? Are they trying to get women to think that it's cool to be a snarky boss bitch? You know, that's just cool. It's cool to be snarky. You know, I'm the CEO, I'm a fucking bitch, and nobody else is like that, though. Like, nobody. And if you meet people like this, if you meet normal people like this that don't own shit, they have a fucking mental disorder. They got a fucking mental problem going on. If you meet somebody that acts like, let's say, Sabine from the fucking, I think it was the Ahsoka show. You meet a person that acts like that, you gotta get away from them. You gotta get far fucking away from them. But again, meandering. Let's watch this together, because this is a treat. Finally, I can skip that fucking bog water ad.
Honest, I was not very steeped in the comics.
Not very steep in the comics.
I didn't read any comics or do any research.
Didn't do much research.
I wasn't familiar with the comics. I wasn't familiar with the movies.
I wasn't familiar with the comics. I wasn't familiar with the movies. These are all writers on major shows, as you can see.
We didn't lean into a whole lot of the history of the comic books.
Yeah, candidly, we were not enormous comic fans.
Yeah, candidly, we were not enormous comic fans. How bitchy does this dude look? Like, how do these people get these fucking jobs, man? Like, if you're a white guy, I think the only way you can get these jobs is if you're like a pasty, either skinny or dopey sack of shit is the only way you could get these jobs. Because if you're like a strong white guy, and you could see these examples everywhere, Joe Manganiello, strong white guy. I mean, he looks white. I'm gonna assume he's white, and it would, you know, be really funny if someone, I'm sure someone in the comics is gonna go, you know, he's not actually white. He's actually Spanish. I don't give a fuck. He looks like a white guy. Okay. Joe Manganiello, Henry Cavill, fucking all the people fired over the past 5 years, all the white dudes fired over the past 5 years. You know, if you look at that, you might make some assumptions. You might make some assumptions that they hate white guys. But, you know, it's wrong to assume. It's wrong to assume, you know.
First thing I was told is don't read the comics.
Oh my god, that's probably the best one right there. That's the best one right there. On Secret Invasion, first thing I was told was to not read the comics. Don't read the source material, because we're rewriting it for you. We're rewriting it for a new fan base. Fucking gay. Super gay. Super shit.
Really?
As a creator, they put you in a bubble. They don't let you talk about any of the other projects, right?
Now, the Malcolm Spellman one, you know, it says, as a creator, they put you in a bubble. They don't let you talk about any of the other projects. It sounds like a government fucking job. You can't go talk to a coworker about the thing you're working on because they want you to only report to the head guy that is the head girl or whatever the fuck. They only want you to report to him with all the data and all the shit you're coming up with. So here's one creative person, here's another creative person. They don't talk to each other. They only talk to this one guy, and this one guy pieces together all the bullshit they're coming up with. That sounds really efficient. That sounds super efficient. That sounds like fucking something set for ruin. And it is. I mean, you can go look at all this media. All this media is dying, which is the legacy media. It's gotta go, dude. It's gotta go. There's probably gonna be a resurgence of really good small budget movies, and I'm hoping for it. You know, small budget shows. If you see something that's got a low budget, I maybe would be more inclined to watch that. And you know, and I'm not saying that a movie that costs $300 million isn't good, but it's got to make $1 billion before they consider not selling their company to Lionsgate or some shit. You know, it's just, oh, it's fucking lunacy, man. It's lunacy. You know, if you want to go find this little fucking clip yourself, you can go find it. It's easy to find, but it is so funny. The Taika Waititi part is really good, where he's saying, you know, I'll go read the comics and see where we went wrong. If you had read the fucking comics, you little, oh my god, if you had read the comics, you wouldn't have went wrong. But you're a fucking man-child loser, and all you can do is drive shit into the ground because you want to spew ideology to people. You just want to spew bullshit to people, and that's crazy, man. When your shit is ideologically backed from an authoritarian standpoint, you're gonna fail. It's going to fucking fail. And these people are major authoritarian. Major authoritarian. You have to be authoritarian to lay down these rules that these people lay down, these strict parameters for you to work in. You know, it used to be the strict parameters were lack of budget. Lack of budget was the strict parameter. You got to work with what you have. Now the budget is overinflated and all they do is pump out shit. How is that? How is that? How do they do that? You know, I don't know, but they'll keep fucking doing it, and they'll go into ruin doing it. Let's go back to the Joe Manganiello. Let's watch more of what he's got to say, because you can tell there is some anger welling in him.
I think because of the way that Dragonlance was handled last year.
Yeah, oh, and right there's another tidbit. Right there's another tidbit of information that he gave, is that it wasn't discussed when they released this module. It wasn't discussed with him, Margaret, or Tracy. So the two original creators of Dragonlance, the module, and this failed piece of shit that he's about to talk about, weren't discussed with the original writers of Dragonlance. How is that? How do they do that? Could it be the same shit we just watched, where these Marvel writers and Marvel creatives, whatever the fuck you want to call them, these Marvel freaks, could it be the same rot that is in their mind is seeped into everything you watch? That couldn't be it. But it's just crazy, you know, like he goes on about how he showed it to several high up people, and they said that it was, one person he showed it to said that it was the best pilot he'd read since Game of Thrones, you know, or the best pilot he'd seen since Game of Thrones. It's just, oh, it's lunacy, man. Oh, it's fucking lunacy. you really got to watch out for these people. You know, when you see a job listing where it says looking for diverse cast member, looking for diverse writers, you got to stay away from that. You can't go do that. You have to let your talent rise to the top. Your talent has to rise to the top. If you're hired onto a project purely because you are black, or you're Muslim, or you're a girl, or any of that shit, any of the shit that they're, or you're trans, the big one, you know, any of that shit, it's all fucking mind-numbing, crazy shit, you know. And when you get dragged into that sphere, and they only want you because of your skin color, is that not insulting? Is it not insulting? The woman that acted in Echo hadn't acted in a single thing before. She just happened to be darker skinned, has some Native American lineage, which she probably doesn't even have, and she was deaf. So that's it. That's it. They're gonna hire you because you're fucking what are they calling it now? Neurodivergent? If you're neurodivergent, then yeah, you'll get fucking hired. But I don't know. It blows my mind, dude. It blows my mind. I can't believe that these people still have jobs. And it's crazy that like companies like Wizards, I think they laid off like 3,000 people right before winter or some shit like that. Let's look that number up, because that number's pretty alarming. Okay, the number I said was a little overinflated, all right? But if they could have it their way, it would have been that. But it says here 1,100 jobs. 1,100 jobs. But this fucking article that I'm looking at is likely, I don't know who wrote it, Amanda Silberling, whatever the fuck. It says that they cut 1,100 jobs despite Dungeons and Dragons thriving. It's not thriving. The company, on a company-wide analysis, it is not thriving. It's thriving for fans because people can homebrew and make up their own shit, but it's not thriving for the company. If it was thriving for the company, they wouldn't have laid off 1,100 people. They wouldn't have had a failed module come out last year that was horribly failed, that fucking sucks. They wouldn't have spent thousands of dollars making a board game, or however the fuck they probably spent $500 or some shit on materials, and you know, maybe they gave $200. They broke off $200 to a couple people to make it. But when you have this lack of care for the shit that you're working with, when you're not obsessed with the thing you're working with, when you're not like freakishly obsessed with it, and I don't mean obsessed to the point to where like you can't sleep kind of thing, or maybe I do. Either way, it takes a little bit of obsession. It takes an obsession to work on this stuff and make it good. You have to be completely enthralled with what you're working with. You have to have a backing of the original lore and what made you like this shit in the first place. And when you don't have that, this is the kind of shit that happens. You know, he says the E1 was sold off, so that's why the show's not going anywhere. Okay, well, he went higher up, and they don't want to work with it. They don't want to work with Dragonlance anymore because they failed it last year. They failed, so because they failed, you had this great money-making opportunity that you could go with, and but you don't have a fucking production company anymore. You don't have a studio anymore. So now, what are you gonna do? You're gonna have to go through Lionsgate now if you wanted to make another D&D movie, and it's crazy they chose to make a D&D movie with completely unknown characters. It just completely how did they even make that fucking movie? I haven't seen the movie. I'm sure it's alright. I hear good things. I hear it's full of Marvel-esque humor, which I'm not fond of. But how do they make this shit? But there's other shit on the shelf that they could take and work with that has people with passion behind it. Well, maybe it's because you have to pay people with passion. Maybe because people with passion need money to do something. And you can get off paying, say, the lead actress of Echo, you can get off paying her a shit wage because she's never acted it before. So any amount of money sounds crazy to her, you know? But, yeah, that's pretty much it. And I apologize if you can hear my dog snoring in the background. He's a sleepy boy. But Yeah, till next time, y'all. I just wanted to rant about that a little bit. And if you haven't already, give it a like, subscribe. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.